Hi everyone, I'm Joshua Schmidt, and today we're going to be talking about ProdigyGame Math. What is it? What does it look like in the classroom? And what do you need to be ready to use it with students tomorrow? As always, these videos are not designed to be the end-all be-all of this resource, but rather an effective starting point to see what it looks like in the classroom. If after this video you have more questions or are curious about future applications, please reach out to myself and my team to see how we can best support you and your students. One of the first things I like to do in trainings like this is to show the resource from the student side first. We will get a lot more detail about what this looks like from the teacher side, but the first question I want to answer is, what does this resource offer to my classroom and how can it make my classroom better? For ProdigyGame, the answer is student engagement right out of the box. This resource is a role-playing game, similar to something like Pokemon. As we go through the combat system, you will have questions that are related to mathematics, and when you run out of combat power, the only way to get that power back is by answering math questions. These questions can be set from a teacher, they can be set from the program itself, or they can be a combination of the two. When a student answers the question correctly, their bar in the game fills up, which allows them to do more things. That means the content is always connected to the game itself in an authentic way. In order for the students to play the game more, they need to do more questions. I can tell you from personal experience how engaging these activities can be for students and how much fun they have collecting different toys, trinkets, items, and of course, pets from within the game. The first thing students need to do to play the game is to go to prodigygame.com. Make sure they click Play Now, which will bring them to this login page. Many students will log in using their Google account or their Clever LMS account, but there can also be teacher-created accounts as well. However, no matter how the account was created, one of the most powerful parts of Prodigy is that account can be shared between teachers and classes. So for example, if you had a student playing Prodigy Game in 6th grade math, when they come to you in 7th grade math, they can update their account into your new classroom and they don't lose any of their progress. I can tell you from personal experience, the ability for students to bring their pre-existing account into your classroom is a big deal. Once students are logged into Prodigy, there are many different worlds that they can play through, and there are quests within each world that give them items and pets and other things to collect. Once they're in the overworld, they can then enter into a battle-based system where when they need magic power, they have to then answer math questions correctly in order to gain more power. We will show in a little bit how these questions can be created either from the teacher or automatically gathered from the game itself. As students progress through questions, they will get increased ranks on specific skills, as well as moving through the assignments or plans that they've been given by their teacher. From the student side, they're incentivized to keep playing the game because as they finish battles, they get bonuses, items, and they can collect pets as they play. However, something to keep in mind is that there are restrictions on the free accounts, but as a teacher, the restrictions are never content. They're always stuff the students are trying to gather that exist within the game, but not within the curriculum you're trying to get them to do. At the end of combat, students will be given battle stars that will level up their wizard, their individual pets, and they can also get items as they play through to gain power-ups, costumes, and other things. As I mentioned before, one of the most powerful parts of Prodigy is engagement right out of the box. And so you can have students be really engaged with the game itself and also understand the value of the content they have to complete in order to gain more of the things they're trying to achieve within the game. I always love how there's a benefit to working through content as well as playing the game together. Now, one of the things that's most interesting about ProdigyGame Math is what control looks like for the teacher in terms of content. It's entirely possible that you just want your kids to play a game with the content being created by the game itself. ProdigyGame allows you to do that. You also can set a preset plan over the course of the assignment, so you want students to cover a specific topic, but you don't necessarily want control over exact questions. ProdigyGame allows you to do that as well. But you also can create individual assignments with specific questions so that every kid is getting the same question every time. So we're going to show you a little bit of what that looks like from the teacher side to see the best way for you to use it with your kids. Teachers will log in a very similar way to students, except that they're not logging into the game itself to play, they're logging into the teacher side, and they can use any of those same login components the students could. When you create your own individual classrooms, you have a lot of control over what they look like. And for the sake of today, I'm going to create a fake classroom for a 5th grade group of students, and I'm just going to call them test students 1 through 5. But if you watch in the video here, you can get a basic idea of what that classroom creation process can look like. When I'm adding students, this can be those existing accounts we talked about before, or they can be teacher-created accounts on the side. But don't be worried, you can always come back and change these accounts later, so don't get too worried about what that process looks like. As I talked about before, I'm creating a 5th grade classroom, so the students will default to a 5th grade math level. However, you do have the ability to adjust each individual student's password, grade level, and you can invite their parent, which actually students are incentivized to do for bonuses within the game itself. But as a teacher, you're going to spend the vast majority of your time within the Assessments tab. There are 3 major types of assessments. We have plans that cover an overall concept, assignments that cover specific skills, and for me, being a teacher from Maine, MEA practice, which is standardized testing practice. Let's look at a plan first. In this concept, I'm going to look at geometry. I have my individual 5th grade geometry standards. I pick the standard that's best for me, and I name this as my geometry practice plan. That means over the dates that I've set, students will default to geometry questions within the standard that I've chosen. However, I will not be able to see exact questions that students have completed until students have begun completing questions within the plan. I also don't have control over exact questions that students will be doing. By contrast, assignments allow me a little bit more control over individual questions, types of questions, and numbers of questions. So in this case, I pick all of my 5th grade geometry standards, and I think about doing 25 questions, but that ends up creating a huge, very lengthy assignment. I would also recommend to choose smaller numbers because students will do these questions in order. They're not mixed up. So if you do 25, they would do 25 of the same question in a row, probably a bit too much. I can assign this to the whole class, or I can assign this to individual students. Just make sure you name it in a way that you can keep track of which assignment is which, so you don't have to go back and forth and search a bunch. Just like the plan, I can set individual dates, and when students are in the game, they will default to the questions that I have assigned to them first. Unlike the plan, I'm actually able to see which questions the students are going to be getting before they begin the problems. However, those questions are going to be put in order. So when I selected 10 questions, it's going to be 10 of the same standard in a row before 10 of the next standard and 10 of the next standard and so on until I've gotten through all of my questions. I'm given the individual answers that the students will be looking for, and I can also see how each student did on each question as they progress. And once students have finished the entire assignment, they would go back to the questions that are set in the plan, or the game would decide which questions they can answer as they play. One of my favorite parts about Prodigy Game is how it's used slightly differently in a bunch of different classrooms. I've seen teachers that use the plan to try to create a student engagement tool to get their students to do just a little bit more math in their free time. I've seen teachers use the assignments to try to get extra practice on the skills that the students just need a little bit more help on. I've even seen it as an assessment tool, focusing on standardized testing towards the end of the year for a little bit extra review. What I've shown you today is the beginning stages to start exploring yourself, but if you need any help or assistance or have some ideas on how you could use it in your classroom, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself and my team. We would love to support you.